our dear viewers, and welcome to a new edition of Body and Soul. In today's edition, we'll be talking about the environment and how it is related to mood swings. And we are delighted to have with us our dear guest, Ms. Samah Khamis, the human development expert. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Before we start our interview, we'll go to watch this report about the environment and how it is related to mood swings, and we'll be back to start our interview.
It's a form of major depression that appears this time of year, when the days get shorter and the temperatures get colder. It's seasonal affective disorder, or SAD. A report in a recent issue of the Drug and Therapeutics Bulletin shows episodes of SAD last around 4 months, and up to 35% of sufferers require hospitalization at some point. Besides feeling depressed, people with SAD eat more junk food and foods rich in carbohydrates. The cause of SAD is still unknown. Antidepressants and behavioral therapy can help treat it, and Cleveland Clinic psychologist Dr. Michael McKee says sufferers can also spend more time in the light and getting active.
Get moving, get your muscles moving. Get away if you can. Take a brief break. Go down south. They're usually cheap airfares if you can possibly afford it. Get some kind of break. Get away from the booze too. People sometimes want to console themselves by drinking and drinking too much, and that only makes a depression worse.
Dr. McKee says light therapy, which uses a special lamp to mimic light from the sun, can also help treat SAD. For Cleveland Clinic News Service, I'm Erica Foreman.
And welcome back. Now we'll start our interview about how the environment is related to the mood swings, and we'll start with Ms. Samah Khamis, the human development expert and a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner. Ms. Samah, can you please tell us how the environment, how the temperature, the weather temperature, could affect our general mood?
Surprisingly, it has a great impact, actually. I wouldn't say that it has the one and only impact, but it does have a huge impact. So, for example, if you monitor or examine people and their behavior in summer and compare it to their behavior in winter, you find that there's a huge difference in some cases. So, for instance, you might find this person is more liable to being a bit aggressive in summer, hot-tempered a little bit. He would be somewhat impatient. And the very same person would act in a different way in winter. You would find him a little bit self-composed. I wouldn't say that it would be like 100% degree of change, but at least you would notice that there is some kind of difference in this person's behavior. Again, I wouldn't say that this is a general fact that would actually apply to everyone, everywhere. So it depends also on certain personal characteristics and properties. But usually, the weather, yes, and the environment does have an impact on the person's behavior and attitude.
But can we say that such an effect from the environment could change from one person to another? For example, one person is more oriented, more comfortable during the summer season. I have been hearing a lot of friends saying, we are waiting for the summer, we want the sun, the beach, and all of this. And on the other side, some people are loving the cold weather, the rains, and sometimes the snow, for example.
That's true.
So some people are more in love with the summer and others with winter. So how this could affect the general feeling?
Yeah, we're talking here about the general temperament. I mean, this is the general thing that people would be affected in a way or another by the weather. But when we come and examine this on every person's in a different way, or in how this person in particular reacts to the weather change, then definitely we'll notice that there are some kind of changes. However, we will see that usually, I mean, there's this university, Princeton University, and it conducted a research report trying to find out the answer to this question. Does the environment and the weather in specific, does it have an impact on person's behavior? And they found out that yes, it is true. And after several studies, they found out that a person would tend to be a little bit ill-tempered when it comes to summer more than in winter. Whereas in winter, he would be liable to depression. So you see him a bit depressed when it's gloomy or dim. Am I saying that everyone will respond the same way? No. As you just said, that people differ in the way they prefer, the preferences, or the way they enjoy their time. Definitely that will also have an impact. But in general, this is what these studies have actually noted, that there are some major features concerning weather changes. A closer study, however, mentioned something which can have a scientific explanation to this. You know, there are hormones that the body actually injects. So there's the serotonin hormone, and it has to do with the exposure of the person to daylight. So it says that
daylight, you mean here the sun, or any daylight, even if it's winter and there is no sun?
So the less sunshine you're exposed to, which means usually in winter, the less than serotonin is injected, and therefore you're more liable to depression. So that could be one of the interpretations. For that.
Ms. Samah, we have to mention here that Egypt is a country where most of the time we are in more of a summer season, more of high temperature. So can we say that it has a general reflection, a general relation to the general mood and feelings of the Egyptians?
Usually, when you come to see, for example, when you want to define a certain country and the way people behave in this country, you will just monitor the general behavior.
Yeah.
So we are labeled to be a bit hot-tempered, and we easily lose our nerves.
The majority of the
Are we labeling all Egyptians the same way? Of course not. But this is how most Egyptians are. Am I also saying that this is the only factor, that the weather is the only reason why they're behaving this way? Of course, again, not. Yeah. There are other factors like the social and economic and every other thing you can think of now, that they're facing many difficulties and difficulties in this period of time. But the major thing is that most Egyptians, yes, they are whenever they're subjected to difficulties, they tend to lose their temper in a way. Is it only the Egyptians? No. Also, some other countries that share the same weather are also, you know, you find that people there are, they tend to react in a similar way, like, for example, Italy, like North African countries. And
so can we group the people? For example, when you see some people abroad, for example, you say these people are Mediterranean, these are Scandinavians, these are Asians. So how can we relate this to the environment and their attitude, not only how they look?
That's a good question. Actually, yes, you tend to see common features that actually that prevail in certain countries that are located in specific areas. So that actually proves the idea that the weather, the location, does have an impact. It plays a role in the way people behave, in the way they respond, in the way they react to certain situations. But again, we need to see this in a different view. I mean, that the weather is an external factor. So putting your mood in the hands of an external factor is not really a good choice. But you need to sometimes be observant. You need to actually be aware that this is an external factor and that you have to control sometimes and manage.
And how can we do this as a human development expert and a trainer in the neo-linguistics? How can we control ourselves? How can we control our subconscious? For example, how I can do some anger management, or I stop stressing myself. So I tell myself, no, I should not be a stressed person. I should be happy, or I should adapt to the environment or the stress around me. How can I do this?
Well, in the NLP, which is the neuro-linguistic programming, we do have different techniques tackling this point in particular. The first thing that you need to know is that we have two circles in our lives. We have a circle that we call circle of control. These are the things that are under our control, like what I'm going to dress, how I look, what I'm going to say, our choices, in other words. And there is this bigger circle, which we call circle of concern. We have absolutely no control over these elements.
The bigger circle here.
The bigger circle. So this could include, for example, the weather, the political issues, the economy of a certain country, how people react, I mean other people reaction. So these are elements in the bigger circle. And again, we do not have any control over that big circle. Surprisingly, shockingly, most people are trapped in this circle. And
which the bigger circle.
The bigger circle, exactly.
Which we cannot control much.
And you consume your energy and your effort in that bigger circle. You, for example, like we're talking here now about the weather. So the weather is, of course, an element in the bigger circle. We have no control over that. And yet you find people are so much affected by that, to the extent that they lose control over themselves. That is the point when we have to understand that whenever you are in the bigger circle, you are subjected to three things. You're subjected to pain, to frustration, and to anger.
How can we deal with such three very, very dangerous elements?
So the first thing is to realize, to be aware that, yes, I'm now trapped in the bigger circle. Because some people, they don't realize it. They just react.
But we have to mention that the majority of people, especially here in Egypt, are trapped in this circle.
That's very true. And they do not even know this. They just react. So whenever you are reacting, you're only reacting to a certain element in the bigger circle, then you are subjected to, as I said, frustration, anger, and pain. So the first thing you need to know or need to do is to realize.
Yes.
To be aware that there are two circles, and whenever I'm trapped in the bigger circle, I'm exerting an effort, I'm consuming my energy, and I'm gaining absolutely nothing.
Yes.
So what I have to do is, number one, awareness. Number two, I will ask myself, is there anything I can do to change this? And you should also accept it. We need to accept the weather. We need to accept the fact that Egypt is a hot country. We need to accept that there are certain changes that might not suit my temperament, but I need to accept them. And then comes the question where, can I actually control or manage anything there? For example, if the weather is too hot, can I actually go to a room where I have an AC? If yes, then I shifted myself from the bigger circle to the smaller one where I have a control, I have a decision that I can make. If no, if I'm, for example, in the middle of the street and there's nothing I can do about the hot weather, I need to be aware that I'm not going to be trapped in this bigger circle. I'm not going to consume my energy in vain, and I'm going to actually shift back and accept the fact that I'm in hot weather, accept it, you know, and do not let it affect or impact your behavior.
Ms. Samah will continue our conversation here, but now we are going to have this phone by Dr. Zainab Shaheen, the professor of sociology. Hello, Dr. Zainab.
Hello.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Dr. Zainab, we are talking about how environment could be related to our mood swings.
There is definitely an impact, environmental impact, social environmental impact, and economic and political context on individuals. Their behavior is a reflection of this political, social, and economic circumstances.
Doctor, how the attitude of people could be controlled? How can we not let ourselves to be influenced by all the other environmental and other disorders or problems facing us?
Well, we should not look at it as disorder. It is life. For example, if we look at the rural community, we find that the patterns of living there, their values, their practices are definitely impacting on individual behavior. So we cannot evade that and say this is disorder. By the same token, if we go to the urban community, we find that the values impact on behavioral patterns. For example, in the rural communities, there is face-to-face interaction, there is cohesion, there is a group kind of activity. Whatever event takes place, it is the event of that is shared and people participate in it as on the community level, as opposed to the urban community. There is a distance, it is informal interaction, there is very much alienation as far as neighbors and communities are concerned. So we cannot evade it. There must be an impact, an environmental, social environment impact on behavior and practices of individuals.
Indeed, Dr. Zainab, but with all the stress-related and environment issues, how can the person should stand with himself and say, now I need a vacation? How can we say that we need to stop all the signs and symptoms which could affect our lives?
Well, there is individual differences vis-a-vis this very issue. For instance, my need for a break is different from my friend's need for a break. It all depends on the inputs, whatever kind of inputs you had throughout a period of time, and therefore you need an outlet. You need a break to recharge your energies and emotions and so on. So this really differs from one individual to another, and one has to really face it and say, well, I am getting tired, I am getting disintegrated one way or another, I want to pull myself together and I need a break.
Indeed, Dr. Zainab Shaheen, the professor of sociology, thank you very much for your input. And back to our guest in the studio, Ms. Samah, how can we be affected by all the environmental and stress signs and elements around us, to the extent that we need to visit a shrink, we need a psychiatrist or a human development expert in order to get us to be at ease with ourselves?
So the first point, as you mentioned, is for us to realize that there is a problem in the first place, because as long as I feel or think that there's nothing wrong.
But you feel it inside you. You feel that you are not feeling well, you are stressed. Even it could be reflected on your physical health. Yes. Right. So how can we realize that and start to seek assistance in order to improve our social and psychological life?
Well, the first step is to realize, to admit that, yes, I do have a problem that needs to be solved. And it seems that I am incapable of solving it myself and I need some help. And this in itself is a proactive attitude. So instead of being a reactive, a person who is always trapped in this
circle,
exactly the circle of passivity and negativity, then I would try and pull myself out of it. And first thing I should do is to admit that I need help. There's something wrong and I need assistance. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to be an open-minded person, to listen to that practitioner and to really trust that person's guidance, and then to follow the steps. Usually what we do with our clients is to get them to develop what we call emotional intelligence. And as you know, emotional intelligence is a theory started by John Mayer, and he actually described it as an intelligence that requires four basic angles: self-awareness, self-regulation, motives, and social skills. So what we really want to cater to now is the self-awareness and self-regulation. So once we are aware of something, we need to regulate it and start working on it afterwards.
I will get back to have some tips about how to get acquainted and accepting our environment and all the environmental and other effects which could be affecting our lives. But now we'll take this report about the interesting data over the effects of environment on the mood, and we'll be back to resume our interview.
Wherever people are, in the sweltering heat of the Sahara, the chilliness of Siberia, enjoying the breeze at the seashore in Alexandria, and whether in capital cities or cities with a ticking work schedule or highly populated areas, one thing is definite: it's affecting your mood. Recent studies compared in a given population levels of violence during periods of normal climate with levels of violence during periods of extreme climate. The studies showed that higher temperatures and extreme rainfall led to large increases in conflict. For each one standard deviation change in climate toward warmer temperatures or more extreme rainfall, the median effect was a 14% increase in conflict between groups and a 4% increase in conflict between individuals. The studies covered all major regions of the world and showed remarkably similar patterns across a wide range of settings. For example, they documented that spikes in temperature increased violent crime in the United States and Australia, that years of low rainfall increased domestic violence and ethnic conflict in South Asia, that extreme rainfall events increased land invasions in Brazil, and that warmer temperatures increased civil conflict throughout the tropics. People living in high-risk areas for extreme weather events like hurricanes, tornadoes, floods and tsunamis may also be at high risk for physical and mental stress, not only because of the events themselves, but because of the recovery after the fact. But it is not always bad news. From little things like leaving a bigger tip for the delivery guy when the weather is chilling outside, to donating to homeless shelters during the coldest days of winter, the shared hardships of severe weather can serve to bring communities together and draw out people's empathy. And in the cases of more extreme weather events and other traumatic events, one of the sole upsides may be the communal spirit and acts of kindness that emerge in the event's aftermath. People living in the countryside or in coastal cities are significantly calmer in their reactions to the instigators. Studies also show that people living in predominantly rural areas are happier. People living in commuter towns are more anxious because of the stress of their jobs, family ties, and also lack to enjoy natural landscape. The reasons behind mood swings are various, and a definite conclusion might be impossible. But what is a flat fact is we cannot escape the effects of the environment on our lives on all levels.
Back to our dear guest, Ms. Samah Khamis. Ms. Samah, how, from your point of view and according to your observations, are the Egyptians more at ease? They are in more positive and good mood. In which season? The spring, summer, or what season? Winter?
I would say spring, but unfortunately spring
but the
is
spring
very
in
short.
Egypt,
exactly, it's almost
and majority of the time it's sandy, the weather is not very much.
Yes. Well, actually we face challenges in all seasons, especially in winter and
I
summer.
believe the fall here is the best season in Egypt.
It could be, yes. It depends again on how we see it and how we again react to it. So for example, for some people they would see fall as again something that they are looking forward to, whereas others they would be anticipating some more problems when it comes to winter or summer. So the person's understanding and his image of the season has a great impact on how he reacts to it.
Indeed, indeed. Now, as a neuro-linguistic programming and practitioner, can you give us some tips on how to control ourselves, how to control our inside in order to accept all what we are facing in our daily lives with all the challenges, starting from the environment to the work stress, everything?
Yes, I think I can share something with you here, which is, which might sound a little bit different and strange, which is that I'm not my feelings and I'm not my thoughts. Meaning that, yes, I can think of one thing or another and I can feel one thing or another. But again, I don't have to identify myself with these thoughts and feelings. So for example, if I wake up in the morning and I feel that I'm a bit depressed, I don't have to say, okay, I'm depressed now, so I'll be depressed all through the week. Or even all through the day.
How can we do this?
So again, awareness. I have to listen to what I'm saying, this inner voice in me. There's always this inner voice talking to me.
Yes.
So I have to
My
disengage.
subconscious.
Exactly. I have to disengage. I have to listen to this voice. And once I do that, I know that I am not this voice. I'm not these thoughts.
And how can we do this?
So the first thing is to be aware that there is a voice that told me in the morning, you are depressed. It doesn't say you, actually. It says I am depressed.
So I'm sad, I'm whatever.
Okay,
yeah.
but actually it is not me. I'm the being that observes how I feel. So the first thing I say is, okay, what did I just say to myself? Did I say I'm depressed? Is that what I want throughout the day? So I start asking myself questions. Once I do that, I disengage. I disidentified myself from that voice. And that has a remarkable impact on how I feel. Another thing is...
are all the people capable of doing that?
No, they need to be coached. They need to be actually guided. And that is the role of a coach or a practitioner. Yeah,
can we start this by doing some meditation, for example, by having inner peace or something?
Definitely. But again, you can you can actually do it in a faster pace, which is once you feel that there's any change in the way you feel or how you reacted to something, just breathe and then ask yourself, what did I just tell myself? Because our feelings are usually impacted by our thoughts. So before the feeling, there should have been a thought that came to my mind. So what is this thought? What did I tell myself at this point? So for example, you find yourself saying, I'm a total failure, or I hate my job. Once you say that,
you are giving negative energy.
Exactly. And then when you start going to your job, you're definitely doing a very bad thing there. So you need to first realize this voice and disengage, listen to it, hear it, and then ask yourself, is this what I want? If no, comes the second step, which is, okay, I heard it. It seems that I was feeling a little bit down, but I can manage it. I can control it. I can divert it. I can direct it. And then I thought, it's just like, you know, when you're driving your car and you're listening to the radio and you have buttons there, you can actually switch the channel. It doesn't have to be that channel.
But believe me, it's not that easy for most of the people.
Once you realize the thought, I'm not saying that you would change 100 degrees, but at least you will be able to disengage. You don't have to be totally absorbed. You don't have to be a reactant person. You can be a proactive. You can start thinking exactly what is it that you want. You start to feel that you have a choice in how you feel and what you think, instead of being a victim, instead of being a person who's only reacting to a certain thought or feeling. So again, the first thing we should do is listen to what we're saying to ourselves and ask ourselves, is that what I want or not? And if it's not, then what can I do to change it? And believe me, when you ask yourself that question, you might find that there are things, very tiny things that you can do to change your mood.
Indeed, Ms. Samah Khamis, a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner and human development trainer, thank you very much for being with us, and thank you very much for your advices.
Thank you.
And with this, we come to the end of this edition of Body and Soul. Hope you have enjoyed it. Until we meet again, I'm Mahis Rabia. Many thanks for watching.